Hello, it is Acacia Developer, and welcome back to my Portal 2 Beginners Mapping series. Now, as we learnt in the previous video, we can match textures up using the texture tool, and we can make doors open and close with buttons, whether or not the player is standing on it or there's another physics object on it, such as a cube. But today, I'd like to implement some sort of puzzle into our test chamber, and in addition, I'd like it if we could start implementing some indicator lights. So, you know when you have the dotted lights along the floor that are blue, and then when you press a button, the lights will turn orange. And in addition, there's also maybe like a little sign on the wall, and there's, if I remember, there's a blue X sign and there's an orange tick sign, and we're going to be doing that today. So first of all, we're going to start implementing our indicator lights. So to do this, we're going to go to our texture. In fact, I've already got it selected because I was checking that the texture existed before I started this tutorial. But what you do is you'll open up your texture window, and pretty much all you want to put in here in the filter is indicator. And you'll get a variety of different textures here. Personally, what I'd go for is indicator lights wall here, which is next to indicator lights floor, which is here. So I'm going to select this texture. Now you're going to ask me, am I going to implement this as a piece of actual geometry, or am I going to implement it as something else? Well, I'm going to implement this as something else. So we want the indicator lights to actually be directly on the wall. So we want it to act like an overlay on the wall. And luckily enough, there's an overlay tool in Hammer Editor. If we go to our left here, there's a button that looks kind of like a pool table or something, whatever you think it looks like. But it looks like this, and this allows you to apply overlays onto walls, floors, ceilings, whatever. So we're going to click on this, and we've got a wall here where we want to apply our indicator lights. And with this selected, we just click on the wall in the 3D viewport, and there we go, it's in. Right. So what we're going to do is that there seems to be a very, very strange thing where, at the moment, for some reason, the ceiling has actually been selected alongside it, it's weird. Sometimes things like this can happen. So what I'd recommend is click somewhere else in the 3D viewport, like up here, just to deselect it and select something else, and then reselect it again, and it should select it properly. Now what we can do here is we can rotate it. This is the front view, so this is how we're looking at it from this side of this red line. We're looking at it here in this viewport. So what we're going to do is we're going to click on this, like so, and the little dots appear in the corners, and that's where we rotate. And there we go. There is our indicator lights implemented. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to drag these a little bit lower, to just above the floor there. And there we go. There is our indicator lights, and also we want to start putting them on the floor as well. So I'm just going to quickly click the apply overlay tool again. I'm going to go to browse in here, and as opposed to selecting the wall indicator lights, I'm going to select the floor indicator lights. So we'll click there, and we've applied that to the floor. To be honest, I'm not sure whether or not there's a difference between the wall indicator and the floor indicator. It's just that this is how I've seen some people do it. So I think we're better off just doing it this way. So we're going to match that up to the wall. There we go. That's matched up. And we can't really copy and paste. I'll show you why. If we go Control C and Control V, something weird will start happening. It's not showing up on the floor. It's very strange. So what I'd say, if we undo that, what I'd say is just apply the overlay on the, again if you need to. Deselect it, select it again, drag it where you want, and there we go. So just a thing to remember is when you're working with overlays, never copy and paste, just place them individually and you'll be fine. And just remember to deselect them and then select them again, or else weird things will start happening. Like maybe you'll start rotating a wall, you know, with the indicator light, which is, it's strange. It may be a bug with Hammer, but I'm not sure. Right, so there we go. So our light is leading from up here to our button now. And also, something that I completely frickin' forgot. You need to name these overlays. So, I think since we've got a multitude of different overlays here, we can select one, hit Control, or hold Control, and select them all here. And then I believe if we go into the one of the 2D viewports here and right click, we can go Properties. Now we're in the Info Overlay Properties window, and as you can see we've got multiple objects selected. So we're going to define a name for them. We're going to call them indicator underscore lights, and you'll find that this text seems to be highlighted in bold. This is basically saying, this is Hammer saying to you, oh, there's multiple entities in this level with the same name. So whenever, for example, if we select this door, it's not in bold because there's only one entity in the world that is called Door 1. But just remember, if there are multiple entities with the same name, it will put the text in bold for you, just to tell you. For this situation, that you know that it's no problem, because we want all these indicator overlays to act together. So it's best to refer to all of these with the same name. Anyway, what we're going to do is we're now going to set it so these change orange when the player stands on the button. So what we need is we go to the Entities button, go over to the right, like we always do to get an entity, and we're going to type in Texture. Now, from this list, you're going to select Env Texture Toggle. And in the 3D viewport, we click, and there is our texture toggle. And basically, this is going. You can think of the texture toggle as the manager for the indicator lights. So it manages kind of the texture toggling of the indicator lights, if you like to think of it like that. And if we double click on this, we get the properties window. First of all, we need to select the target brush or target brushes, and we can select that in here. So we've got indicator lights, so that's referring to all those overlays we have placed. Click on that, right, apply. Now we need to give it a name, so we're going to call it indicator lights underscore texture toggle. There we go, so we know what it is. It's very good to give entities that you put in your world very distinguishable names, and of course names that are relevant to that entity. So since we're using a texture toggle, we can name it texture toggle. Of course you can name it whatever you like, but for ease, and so we know what it is, I've included this in the name. So what we're going to do is we want this to fire an output to change the colour of these indicator lights when the button is pressed. So that means we're going to have to define all of this in the button. So with all, you know, you may be asking me, can you put all these under the same little outputs here? No, you can't. So that means that we're going to have to add a new one, and we're going to have to select on pressed again. So basically this is executed on pressed and this is executed on pressed as well. So we have to have multiple little outputs for each one. We can't actually have one output and then loads of different things under that. We have to have it all separate. So I'm going to click on this drop down box here, and you'll want indicator lights texture toggle because we're referring to the texture toggle manager. Then we're going to select this drop down box here, and we're going to select set texture index. Now basically what this is going to do is it's going to set the texture index of the defined overlays, which are the indicator lights. And you'll see that this box here, it says with a parameter override of. Now basically the texture toggle holds two values. It holds 0 and it can hold 1, and this is depending on the texture you use, whether it's indicator lights with two states. And what we're going to need in this situation is 1. So basically it's setting the indicator lights with a texture index of 1. Now as they are in the current state, they are in blue, they are actually texture index 0. So remember, on pressed, texture index 1, these will turn orange. Then we need to add another output. So on unpressed, we're going to go to texture toggle, set texture index as 0. Oh, not 90, 0. So 1 changes it to orange, and 0 changes it to blue. So I'm going to click apply to that. Just check that our target, yep, and make sure that you set your target brushes in the texture toggle thingy. And yeah, anyway, I'll see you in game because I want to test this now just to make sure that everything's working and that I haven't given you a faulty tutorial on this. Anyway, I'll see you in game. Hello there, we are now in game and we're going to test our indicator lights. So we're going to pick up this cube, put it on the button, and there we go. It wasn't a faulty tutorial, people, it works. Alright, sorry, it's just that I don't have much experience with the texture toggle, but if you step on it, there we go, it turns orange as well, and as soon as we unpress it, it turns back to blue. So now what we're going to do is we're going to add a tick or an X up here because it looks a bit weird at the moment. It's kind of leading up to pretty much nothing on the wall. So yeah, we're going to go back into Hammer Editor and we're going to go do that now. Okay, so we're now back in the editor. Now what we're going to do is we're going to construct our sign here. And we're going to do this using the geometry tool. And if we just drag over here, I think if you select the overlay, we can actually see where it ends in the 2D viewport. So it ends around here. So if we drag our sign out here, the door animation is kind of getting in the way there. It's a bit annoying. So look, let's stretch it out a bit more. Nope, I completely scrubbed it. What am I doing? Let's remember what I said about decreasing and increasing the grid size. It's the left curly bracket to scale the grid down, and the right curly bracket to scale it up to make it bigger. I'm just scaling it down so I can get it, because you see I want to get it equally size. So 36 by 36. Yeah, that I think that will do. Right, so what we're going to do now is we're going to press, wait, no, if we look in the bird's eye viewport up here, I'm going to resize it so it doesn't actually go through the wall, because we don't want it going through the wall. And this light blue line represents this wall here. So I'm going to press enter, And there we go, there's our indicator. Now it's the wrong texture at the moment, I'll get to that in a second, but I'm just going to reposition this to make sure that it's over the overlay correctly, so it doesn't look. There we go. I think that'll do for now. So this is going to be the thing we're going to be using for toggling the texture. Now this is how we're going to do it. We're going to go to the textures window, click browse, and I guess if you type in, let's say, tick, or oh no, nothing comes up for tick. Okay, if we type in something like indicator, the confusing thing is you're presented with a multitude of different tick and cross textures, and some of them don't actually work with a texture toggle. It's strange, and I'm not sure why they're really there, unless they're used in Portal 2 somewhere as like a broken signage system where they don't need to change or something. But what we want in order to toggle between the tick and the X is we're going to type in Signage. Now under Signage we're going to get quite a few different textures, and what you're looking for is a bright X texture, and it's entitled Signage_door_state. This is going to be the texture we're going to be using. Just double click on this, and of course select your geometry, and we click the apply current texture tool to apply it. So we've got our X texture on this piece of geometry here, but what we need to do is we need to align the texture so it's not tessellating halfway across the geometry. I agree, it looks rather weird at the moment, but we can fix this. So if we go to the texture toggle application here, we can drag the screen over. Right, remember we looked at this window in the last tutorial a bit when we were correcting the archway door textures, but what we're going to use this for today is actually scaling the texture. Now it's going to be tedious because if we select the scale here, we can change the actual scale of the X, but it's going to be very tedious trying to kind of resize it manually. So what we're going to do is we're going to hit this little button here, and as you can see it's entitled Fit, and this button is under the Justify group box. So we're going to click on Fit with the geometry selected, and as you can see it automatically stretches the texture to the size of the geometry. So that's how we're doing that, and as you can see our X texture is working correctly. Now I recommend you follow me closely for this next bit because it may get a bit confusing. But as for now, this actual piece of geometry isn't something that we can use with a texture toggle entity. First of all, we actually have to define a name, but if we double click on it, this blank window will just come up, and it just says auto, and there's a load of different things you can tick here. So what we need to do is we need to actually change this into something else, and in order to do this we're going to select this geometry and we're going to hit Control T on our keyboards, and as you can see it turns it into a funk detail. Now what we want to do is we want to select, because you see we still can't define a name for this, so we're going to select this drop down box up here, and all these elements in this list box represent different forms that geometry can take. Whether or not you're creating something like a moving elevator, a piece of glass that can break, or whether or not you want it as a func door, so you can create a door or something. It's all here. So, but what we want in this situation is we want a func brush. So we click that, and click apply. So now, as you can see, this circle has appeared in the center, and this is basically telling us, hey, I'm an entity now. I'm not actually a default piece of geometry in the world that does nothing. So what we're going to do is we're going to give it a name, and we're going to call it maybe something like indicator. I don't know, tick. Or I'll just call it indicator sign, because it's a sign. Click apply, and there we go. That's all. I think that's all we need to do for that bit. Now what we need to do next is, I'm unsure whether or not we could use the same texture toggle thing, but probably not. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a second texture toggle. What we can do is you can go Control C, select this wall up here, Control V, to make sure that it's pasted in front of the wall and not behind it or anywhere else. So we've pasted it in here. We're going to double click on it, and instead of indicator lights texture toggle, I think we should call it indicator door sign. And as opposed to setting the target brushes to these overlays, we're going to set the target brush to indicator sign, and then we're going to click apply. Now we just need to define these in this button here. In fact, what we could do is, since we've already got all these things set up here, what we can do is you can go copy, and then we can paste it. So we're basically copying and pasting the same output, and then we can just change this to this is why you've got a name properly, because I just realised that I couldn't tell the difference between the door sign and the actual texture toggle. So texture toggle, see, it really does help when you do it, when you name properly. So we're going to click apply, and we're going to go back to our button, and this time hopefully we can tell the difference. So let's change this, indicator door sign texture toggle, right, there we go. And on unpressed, copy, paste, we want indicator door sign texture toggle, apply. And so we've got on pressed, it will set the index to 1, which is a tick, and on unpressed that will set the texture index to 0. So I'm going to save that, and I'll see you in the actual game where we're going to test it. So we're in the game, and we're now going to test the sign. So when I step on it, there we go, the tick appears, and if I get off it, it goes back to an X. And the same goes if I put the cube on. There we go. Now you may notice that there's like this little weird bit at the side, and it's kind of like, since this piece of geometry is textured on all sides, that means that the tick and the X are going to appear on the sides as well. And that's another thing that we're going to fix now. Right, we're back in the editor again, and of course we can even see in the editor that it's textured at all sides, and it's not really looking that good at the moment. So a thing that I was taking a look at, if we minimize this, and we're actually going back to the mp_co-op_doors, and as you can see, we have a similar setup here. So we have the indicator lights that go to the button, and as you can see, we've got the texture toggle up here that toggles all the indicator lights here. And what we've got here is we've got kind of like a metal frame which is going around the piece of geometry, which is the indicator sign. So what I thought we could do is we can go Control C on this, then we can minimize this and we can go back to our original map, and then we can click on this wall and we can go Control V here, and depending on the kind of the position of this geometry and the direction it's facing in, this may paste at a different rotation. So what I'd say is we'll get this is what it looks like in the top bird's eye view, and like always we just click on it again so we can rotate it 90 degrees, and then we can place it up against our wall here. Now we're going to place it right by our funk brush. Now as you can see, the funk brush is a bit too big, so what we can do is, if we've got the grid size correct, I think that's more or less correct, what we can do is we can actually resize this. Now you'll find that if we resize this piece of geometry, the actual texture doesn't resize with it, which is a bit of a pain. So what we can do is, there's these two buttons up here, and what they do is they allow you to resize pieces of geometry without actually retaining the texture's original size. So what we do is we click on this button here, and then when we resize, the texture will retain the actual size, its actual size relative to the geometry. And as we can see, it's actually sticking out a bit here, so we can kind of put that back in there, and there we go. We've now got kind of like a little frame around our X, and it looks rather nice, very professional. And since this is my tutorial, and I'll probably regret not telling you this, I think that I need to show you how to import this frame yourself without having to copy and paste it from other maps, because we don't want to spend our entire time copying and pasting maps. But what you can do is you can click the entity tool, we go up here and we go to a prop static, select it, and as always we click it into the world. Now what a prop static is it's basically a static model. So it's a model that doesn't move, that doesn't do anything, and primarily static models are used for stuff like map decoration and that. So we double click on the entity and we get up the properties window. Now in world model, what we can do is you click this and then we click browse. Now this is actually the model browser. Now you can, if we think back to the texture browser, this is basically what the model browser is, except it's built for models instead. So you can access many models that are built into the game, into Portal 2. But what we want in this situation is, oh, this is a sign. What we need is we need frame, I believe. As you can see, here is our frame that we've got. This is the frame that we've got on our X here. So basically we click OK, apply, and there we go. There is your frame, right there. I think, is it a little bit off? Yeah, it's a little bit off the wall, that's why it looks bigger. Sorry about that. If we just take that back a bit. Yeah, that is more or less exactly the same model as that one. So pretty much I just wanted to show you two ways of being able to import the frame into your map. But of course it's always better if you learn the proper route, which is to put prop statics in and, you know, get the model yourself and put it in yourself, as opposed to copying from other maps. But I just want to show you both ways. Now what I wanted to do today was, my original plan was that we put in some indicator lights and then we'd start working on the level. But the only issue is I don't like my tutorial videos dragging on for too long, because I know that some people may lose focus after a while. So I think that maybe we should leave this for another video, And I just wanted to thank you very much for watching, and thank you very much for supporting this channel as well if you've subscribed. I do definitely want to start building up an audience, so don't be afraid to share this with your friends. My kind of objective is to produce easy to follow videos, 1080, 60 frames per second, high quality video. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you in the next tutorial.